Our vision is to disciple the earth, one family at a time, teaching them God's true intention and purpose for family life, love, dating, and marriage.
They should do all those things. Then in terms of the marriage itself, what should they do? Should they go registry? What should they do?
Do not do registry with a person before you do the other forms of marriage. That's my general advice. Why? The hardest to reverse is registry. So if you are not certain that you are sorted family, not because marriage is valid only when family participates. Marriage is an adult decision. For this cause, a man will leave his father and mother. Yeah. But when we are getting married, we are looking at the ultimate piece of the extended family. So not because I married you, my whole family will go into crisis. Of course, there are issues of parental resistance that there are wisdom to handle. But since we know that we do double-decker, triple-decker, allow it to be precept upon precept. Do you want your family at peace? Would your father be angry that you went and did your thing? Especially for a lady, a father will feel betrayed. Like, I value you. I'm not doing all of this. I want to also check that my daughter, I'm handing over to somebody else. All right? So I would always advise that let the traditional system kick in fully before you do some of those things. For some people, they rush that part because of things like travel.
Yes.
They want to start processing papers so that right after the final ceremony, maybe the church, they're able to travel, having completed the registry part. I always advise that this should also be at a point where you are pretty sure. Because some people have broken after introduction. Some people have broken after second visit and everything scattered. And they're in this position I'm talking about. I know people who have had registry certificate and for 2 years on, family still does not consider them married. Conflict. Yes. Family still says there's this you must do. So even as believers, why put yourself in that place? Yes, if God wants to look at that certificate, you can move in. But even your church is waiting for you to do wedding because they are waiting for your family to bring you to come and... That's conflict. So even when you have to take one step ahead of the other, do your best to get family buy-in so that it's all peaceful. Because if things move normally, without issue of I need to travel, I need to this, you should finish introduction and traditional before you head to registry. So very often I would easily advise introduction, trad, registry, church, especially if you have the time. But for some people, the time is so collapsed. Like in our case, what happened was we did trad. Our family was in Abuja. They had allowed us to do the wedding in Makurdi where I was. So we did trad, entered Makurdi within the same week we were going to do church and did the registry. Because the registry system in Nigeria kicks in 21 days before the date itself. You fill the forms. Yes. And that 21 days is actually for notice. But that's now formality. Is to give notice in case there's any objection or caveat to be placed. And to solve that same issue, which I say because of our manual record we are not solving. That 21 days is to give public notice to the world that this person wants to marry this person. If you have any caveat, I'm married to him or I'm not married to him, come and bring it in. But now it's just like counting 21 days, you go and pick certificates. It's that easy. Okay. So since that's the easiest part, because there's family visit, introduction, traditional, bride price, that's the harder part. Certificate is easy. It's fill form, give passport, wait 21 days, go back to registry, buy them out, they sign certificate, you're married. Very easy. So why not wait for that one?
Okay. So let's move a bit. Before we talk about divorce, if somebody is married, registry and everything, what are the legal and practical implications of that?
It's like Bible. Because you have the Marriage Act. You have the Child Right Act. It brings you, even other forms of marriages, brings you within some of those laws. For instance, Child Right Act. In fact, the Child Right Act was enacted to protect the best interest of the child. It's under that act that they can carry a child completely from the parents and give somebody else to take care of. So, but marriage under the act puts you firmly within the dictates of law, left, right, center. So even the rights of the parties in the marriage, like I was talking about adultery itself, the issues of maintenance, even if there's divorce. So like the Matrimonial Causes Act defines from capacity to marry to divorce and post-nuptial details, all of it is covered. So if you look at marrying under the Act, you're actually talking about a body of legislation that defines certain rights, responsibilities in clear terms. Even defines how and the ground under which you come for divorce or cannot come for divorce, when you can even come for divorce or cannot come for divorce. All of that is spelled out. And that's why you see things like even protection for spouses, like when some people die. Because what happens is that most times, people are able to, using their rights under the Act, override custom. Because this is more specific. This in itself, now, if a system is supposed to judge custom, and that system and custom stand together, which system would you follow? And the reason why that's easy to answer is, from the day I choose to marry under the Act, I have overridden certain custom that should have applied to my spouse automatically. It's like subscribing to a higher law that says you...
So that supersedes customary.
Exactly. It's just like if somebody writes a will now, you can't bring any custom. He has expressed his will on paper. So that will would override any noise you want to make. Because the man himself has said, you see this custom, I'm not subscribing now. I'm going to do this. But of course, again, the type of marriage you choose, I know this was specific to, under Islamic law, when it comes to even writing will, there are certain things you can't bend. So the law matters. So if you are married under the Sharia, there are strict rules to follow when it comes to even inheritance. So under the Act, I mean, there's quite a protection. Then, of course, the ease of reference that you're married. Anywhere in the world, that certificate, makes it so easy to prove that you're married, rights and obligations, like I said. It just makes it easy to define certain rules. But by the way, you didn't ask this one, but by the way, every child is legitimate.
Explain that.
So whether a away game happens or does not happen, whether you prosecuted the person for adultery or did not, every child is a legitimate child.
Wow.
Even if not a child of, now Child Right Act to come in.
Yeah.
Because now Papa and Mama born now.
Yes.
No child fell from heaven.
Yes.
And no child is illegal.
Yes.
So the act producing the child may be illegal. But the child is legal. So that's how strong the law is.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so let's talk about divorce. So, on what grounds should somebody be thinking of divorce?
Me, I should answer.
Yes, as in what grounds can he now feel?
Okay,
like
according to law,
legally, yes,
not my ground.
legally.
There are several grounds in law. Like I said, adultery, there's irreconcilable differences, which is the one people use. Because that one, you can just tell the court that we cannot live together again.
Yes.
We cannot. Whether you supply enough particular, we cannot. Because the court will never force a couple who are ready to go apart to stay together. Never. There's no divorce proceeding that will not end the divorce. The court may only say, I don't believe the grounds you brought. But the moment the parties are ready to go, no court can say you must stay married. So that's established. So there's, let me just take a couple of them. There's dissertation. You can dissert your partner.
Yes.
Yeah. So the law provides a certain number of years. The law considers that you have disserted the person. Yeah, it's 2-3 years. Is it 2 or 3? Yeah, dissertation. There is presumption of death. If a person is not heard from for 7 years, the law presumes the person is dead. Yeah. So somebody can take that as a ground that we've waited, we've done everything, we can't contact, we can't reach, we can't. So 7 years, you can go under the ground of presumption of death. There's adultery, like I said. There is irreconcilable differences. The one that practically everybody goes under. Yeah. Like, because for that one, you can just say we quarrel a lot, we can't get along, and I don't want to over-explain to some people so that they
won't use it.
They will not meet their lawyer tomorrow and say, irreconcilable, every difference can be reconciled. I just meet Pastor K, I have made it. So those grounds in law, then like I was saying, there's the refusal to consummate. And as strange as it is, it happens. I have been involved before in a matter.
So they've been married from beginning and never had sex?
Never. In some cases, the funny thing in some cases is that they were having premarital sex. Then got married, somebody refuses to consummate. Yes. Then, so some of those, you can see that it's either deceit, like this one I said, premarital sex, that means they have capacity. The person even lacked capacity. through deceit and all of that, some of those, then you realize that we cannot perform. So there's refusal to consummate or inability to consummate and all of that. There are grounds. So there are some grounds like that, but these are the principal.
Is that domestic violence? Is that the ground?
Of course, when you come to that's the spouse is acting in a way that you cannot be reasonably expected to live with them. So that will come, domestic violence and some of those things will come under that. So there's a ground like that the way they behave, you cannot be reasonably expected to live with them. And you show the court. But you see, that will be harder than irreconcilable differences. Because you are now putting their character and person on trial. And you need to prove what they are doing that shows that you will not be reasonably expected to be able to live with them. So while I said the court cannot refuse to separate people who are going their separate ways, that's more stressful. You are bringing stuff out to prove a lot of things. So so there are grounds of divorce, and the nice thing is, legally speaking, it's so easy. If I pick the Matrimonial Causes Act and put it in anybody's hand, I mean, it's all spelled out to details and all of that. It's not.
So now, the consummation one, is it the same as these people got married, they've had sex for 5 years, and then no more sex? Is that a problem?
Oh, no. You are consummated. Consummation, even if it's small, you have entered.
Okay. So now, but the man is not, or woman is not agreeing to have sex now for the past 5 years.
You can prove that you cannot be reasonably expected with the sexual capacity you have. How can I cope?
Yes.
So how can I cope? The thing is, the grounds are such that the scenarios can fit under one of the headings. It can fit under.
So what's the process now? Yes, this issue has come up. Like the one of not consummated, what's the process?
All of them, same process. You commence an action. Petitions, you commence divorce proceedings or an annulment proceeding by petition. There are different forms of commencing action in law. There's motion, there's writ of summons, originating motion, originating summons, writ of summons, and petition. Four main ways you can commence an action. The Matrimonial Causes Act and legislation generally provides for petition as the way. So you have to see a lawyer. The petition has to be taken by a lawyer, or some people represent themselves, but they take out a petition. And now the Matrimonial Causes Act is arranged in such a way to discourage just getting divorced.
Yes.
So it has a laid out format of filing the petition, down to when both parties were born, particulars of cohabitation, particulars of the petition, any children of the marriage, any arrangement as to custody. It has all manner of layers that you have to fill in to make sure that the court is able to see through on the situation. So essentially you have to meet a lawyer, because case by case, the lawyer will also determine what to do and what to advise.
How long is the average process?
In Nigeria?
Yes.
I know divorce matters that have been called 5 years.
Wow. And
I know divorce matters that the appeal from the divorce went all the way to Supreme Court.
So somebody doesn't want to go?
No, not necessarily somebody doesn't want to go, because nobody can keep a person who wants to go.
So why is it taking 5 years, and why is it going to
because there are different aspects to it. For example, you can get an order of maintenance that a man does not believe in. I should be sending woman that have left so and so amount. Sometimes it's challenged to things like maintenance or even property.
So we do those things in Nigeria, because I thought
absolutely.
People divorce. I thought absolutely they don't do all this.
No, the reason why it appears it doesn't happen in Nigeria, we are not as enlightened and would not fight for our rights as much. So somebody gets divorced and the court says, like in one case, the family even called me, the guy has never obeyed the order. What do you do? In places in Nigeria, I say leave it to God. Yes. After all, you have a job. What are you fighting for?
Yes.
But in other countries, this person said, I would rather spend money to get this money from you. So there's nothing I will fight you. That's why it happens there. For instance, in fact, this is not the scope of your question, but hope you know in Nigeria, there's something like in England called breach of promise to marry.
What does that mean?
You promised to marry me, and our relationship was to a particular extent, and you leave me, there's breach of promise to marry, I can get damages. Wow. You have showcased me to everybody. Wow. You have made everybody think that I'm going to. All manner.
Does that exist in Nigeria?
Yes, sir.
Wow, guys.
Breach of promise to marry.
We have to.
You just wake up and give me heartbreak. Give me breakfast. I take you to court.
I will serve you dinner.
But let me now ask, how will you see a girl in Nigeria who takes a man to court for breach of promise to marry?
Yes. Every other person says we even avoid.
Even a judge no go dey laugh.
Yes.
Like, madam, you can't move on. So our culture makes certain things funny to us. That's why, but in certain cases where you're dealing with some kind of enlightened people, you're dealing with some kind of property interests. You know, like, sometimes a client will come to you, labored with a husband, built all manner of stuff, and divorce happens. Even to the house the woman is living, they want to eject her. Somebody will run to court. That's why I see some of those cases now travel all the way to Supreme Court to determine rights. So it's...
Tell us one crazy case of divorce, whether it's you or anybody that you've heard of or anything. Crazy case of divorce. Which
one should I even select now? Because there are different scenarios. I think the craziest for me still is a guy who was sexually active with his babe, got married, and refused to consummate. And this went on before they finally were divorced. I'll give two. This one. Before they were finally divorced, this whole thing went on for about 2 years. Yeah. Just refused to consummate. And they were sexual. It was just funny. Somebody observed something from his family side and insisted she goes to do one ritual or the other in his place. Buy this and buy that and do something like that. And we are Christians. She couldn't even understand. And he stood his ground.
So she didn't want to go?
Yes. Because they were believers. Yes. She didn't even understand why that came up in the first place.
Yes, why we're discussing.
Because when you ask, like, you guys were sexual. They were sexual. But where did this come from? That's not even as crazy. So this, another one, this guy marries, see, before you marry somebody that's abroad, you better know what you are doing. Marries this lady from abroad. She's Nigerian. Not even Nigerian. 1-2, of course, they rushed. They didn't check a few things.
That rush is a telltale sign of trouble.
Bam.
Both statistically, experientially, spiritually, on the highway, speed kills.
That's it.
Everywhere.
That's it. So they got married. The marriage lasted 3 weeks. She returned to the country she came from and insisted that the only way the marriage would go on is if he relocated. The funny thing is, the agreement was that they should live here. The worst part of this whole ordeal was that while in that country, she was depending on him here to send funds. As bad as Naira is to that currency.
Yes.
So he couldn't understand, what are you talking about? Like, I am feeding you from here. The only life I know, his profession was not the kind that he could easily transit there. Yes. The only life I know, and they work and living a profitable life. And he kept demanding. So, unfortunately, you can't also just wake up and take out divorce proceeding, because the law requires that you show exceptional circumstances while you are filing divorce under 2 years of marriage. Yes. You must go and file a motion and show the court the exceptional circumstance of why you cannot try. Exactly. So, in that case, it was sad for him, because he got his lawyers to start the process of showing the exceptional circumstance, but the court dates did not, they couldn't get a date until the 2 years passed, so they abandoned the motion and now filed a proper divorce. But that's how the lady insisted, true and true. And of course, where it gets hard, in some of those cases, the law treats personal service very seriously. When you commence an action, it must be personally served. So when lawyers are caught in that place, money spending begins. You now have to do a motion for substituted service to serve the person other than directly hand to hand. Sometimes it is proving their last known address. Sometimes it is proving where they now are. Of course, the system is relaxed enough now that you can prove their scan an email. Back in the day, it was harder, because they'll tell you to do newspaper publication on top of trying to do case. So imagine all of that process that goes in. So like in this case of somebody being abroad, there were cases that you'll be ordered to DHL it. Yes. And it doesn't stop there, because the thing is, after each sitting, for the court to be seen as having done justice, you have to keep serving the next hearing date to them using whatever system the judge orders. Wow. So imagine it is publication in newspaper. If it's email, fine. If it is last known address, you go and paste. That's why I see some gates with court processes. It's an order to be pasting. So you finish proceeding today, they adjourn to next month, you go and paste the hearing notice for the next month. Because the person is not showing up, you keep meeting the obligation of law that you put them on notice and they are aware. So it's a lot of stress.
In the first case you mentioned, so who wanted to break the marriage? The man or the woman? The one that did not consummate?
Of course, the woman got tired.
Tired of it.
Yes. Because that was no longer marriage. In fact, in that case, the pain for her lawyers was that they thought, speaking from sense, she would get an annulment. Because technically speaking, if you look at the law and even spiritual understanding, consummation is the final act of the marriage. Yes. But unfortunately, our law did not provide for that for annulment. So it was taken as a divorce, not annulment. Annulment should have brought you to the point where the law says you were never married.
So is that an advantage?
It's a disadvantage for me. If I can influence legislation, I will push for an amendment for such cases of non-consummation to be an order of annulment, like the marriage never existed.
Yes, what I'm saying now is an order of annulment.
It's more advantageous, yes.
Divorce? How?
Yes. Because your status is that you are not married. But the status of a divorcee is that you were divorced. So that's the difference. Okay. So this one, the law sees you that you have never been married. You are a spinster and a bachelor. Mm-hmm. But in that other case, you are a divorcee, that you were once married. Okay. Yeah.
So normally, in a divorce case, I have to allow 2 years of marriage.
Except I can show exceptional circumstances why I'm filing under 2 years. Yes.
Okay. So they just want you to stay longer, see if you can work it out.
In fact, judges most times will give you adjournments to encourage settlement and tell you to go and try to settle. Yeah. And some judges can be very firm. They'll give you adjournments upon adjournment. Like some judges will pause proceeding and talk to you.
Okay, so if somebody's married registry and now goes to marry customary,
cannot.
That person.
Cannot.
No, not cannot. They didn't see me now.
Yes.
You know,
illegal.
It's not. Yes, illegally. That's what I'm saying. So is it illegal? Because customary doesn't need me to divorce. In it doesn't need me to divorce the registry one.
Mm-hmm. But the law bars you from doing that. The movement you can make is that you are under custom. You were married to just your one wife and you decided to go and pick certificate. You can transpose higher, but you cannot come lower.
Okay, so somebody married customary can go and marry under wife registry.
No, marry that same wife.
No, I'm talking about two different people now.
Then he has divorced her customarily speaking.
But customary allows us to tell him to have more than one wife.
No, it's the moment he takes that registry process. In fact, the registry process, you feel formed that you are not married. That's why it's a crime. Oh. So that's what I'm saying. You would have to have divorced that first one, customarily speaking, and you are now subscribing to a higher law. So you cannot combine them to use them. Because the process of registry, you commit that you are not married.
Right. And that you will not.
In fact, if you look at an average marriage certificate, it calls the person spinster and the other bachelor. So it describes you as a person without what we call legal impediment. The Matrimonial Causes Act actually provides for their legal impediments, like even issue of consanguinity. How far is too far of a family relationship to marry a person? So if you look under the Act, a marriage you can contract in Islamic law, you cannot contract under the Act. Because there's the question of consanguinity. This is first cousin. So the Act defines some legal impediment, like father-daughter. That's abominable in itself. So the Act will define that cousin or first cousin or this cousin. But you go under Islamic law, for instance, the rules are different. So that subscription cannot be mixed. Cannot be mixed at all. So I can't come under the Act now and pick somebody whose relationship with me is so direct that the law bars us from marrying and say, I want to marry because I can choose to marry. Then go under your custom. Don't come to the registry. So the moment you pick the forms to go to that law, it's like subscribing to a higher law. Everything changes about the rules.
So what if people, speak a bit to people that have done this, in quote, arranged marriage, a lot of Nigerians do abroad to get papers. What happens to this person?
I feel for you. Because what you've done is a crime to start with, complete crime. Like that's why when they get them, when they nab them, deportation follows. You know, and the cases are really bad. Like I know a couple that agreed for the husband to do an arranging marriage son. They now run into crisis here with themselves. Threat enters. Because there are certain things that once you do, somebody can threaten you. Threat entered. Because all she needs to do is to write to the embassy. Because some of these things are not irreversible. In fact, the mistake people make also, citizenship that is not by birth can be revoked. People don't know that. American passport can be revoked completely. So some people feel once they attain the status and get that passport, it's over. The only citizenship you cannot revoke is by birth. So if it's not by birth, you are still a system that can be reversed. If somebody takes on you and decides that this is your matter, we'll see it to the end. Because the system itself knows. And that's why you see some people even get married to foreigners and still have visa issues. Because if you follow immigration policy, there are certain things that are red flags for them. I'll give you, it sounds funny, but it's internal policy. An exceptional age difference, especially when the lady is older and the foreigner, they suspect you are doing it for paper.
Yes.
Somebody who doesn't, by whoever standard, doesn't look good, especially the lady, and you are from here, problem. Age difference, even if the foreigner is the male, and the gap is quite wide, the lady is trying to leave. So there are impressions that immigration already has. You know, so it's important to know that it's a risk not worth taking. Because there are other routes to get abroad if you want to get abroad. Why am I taking a route that I can just be picked like chicken in one day and roasted, like out? And that's happened to many people, a lot of people. So, and people also think sometimes that they have a bit of security when they start having children. A woman was given 90-year ban. All 4 children are Americans. And it was a very simple matter. She would always go in with purely visitor's visa and end up with a child. She would go again, end up with a child. Go again, end up with a child. So she applied for normal renewal. And they said, sorry, ma, it's a scheme. It's a scheme because you've never indicated, pregnancy or a medical. Everything is purely like just visit. We have 4 children, they're Americans. 90-year ban, 70. What do you say to that? So these systems have their points that if it goes against you, so the best thing to do is to actually be hands clean, especially for those who actually have marriage back home. It's easier for some who arrange when they don't have any marriage here, because some people even arrange with their spouse, as terrible as that. So it's a risk not worth taking completely. I can't.
If somebody does that arranging, let's say single, does that arranging marriage, arrangement marriage, and now gets papers and divorces that arranged wife, can he marry anybody?
Of course. Divorce anywhere is a complete freedom to move on with your life. Yeah. So unfortunately, that's how they now work the system. Not because they were actually married, but just use paperwork to, get through. And unfortunately, the system of the world is weak enough for those things to happen. So people do it. If Nigeria had some advantage, you'd have seen it more here. Yes. People would have just picked a certificate and just move on.
But I don't think if people marry Nigerians, do they become Nigerian citizens?
Yes. You can you do the normal thing.
From both male and female? Are you sure?
Of course. It's the same thing.
So if a Ghanaian marries somebody in Nigeria, he's a Ghanaian Nigerian?
Yeah, because it's not like automatic. Just the way you file papers, you do all of that too, and the person gets their citizenship. Because the thing is, the law globally protects the marriage. So how do you expect people to be married who cannot legally live? Yes. So it's a no-brainer. Once there's marriage, that's why it's even an easier entry point than even child filing for a parent. Because there is need for the couple to be together. So it's a very...
even if it's a woman that is a Nigerian?
Whoever it is.
I thought I heard somewhere that if a woman marries, the person does not...
No. It's just follow through the process. By marriage. There are different routes to citizenship. By birth, naturalization, marriage. Those are all routes. You file the relevant papers. Because where does the law expect you to live with the person that's your spouse? In fact, the law itself recognizes what we call unity of spouses. It's not just a Christian doctrine. You are one. It's called unity of spouses. So you are expected to be together. So it's to find necessary papers and you flow. Yeah.
Okay. So in Nigeria, when people divorce, how do they share property? Yes.
First of all, let's even start from sign those divorce papers. Those things are in movies. There's no divorce paper that is to sign Nigeria.
Don't sign divorce paper. So how are you divorcing?
Our system is actually very adversarial. The law itself frowns against collusion. Collusion is what suggests that these people were not legitimately married. They just arranged marriage and have agreed now to just go their separate ways. That's why some judges, when they see elements of collusion, we want to see the conflict. What's the conflict? While they cannot force you to stay married, they know what to do to show you that the law frowns at the nonsense you are doing. The court can actually strike out your matter. So I did not grant your divorce. I did not say you should stay married, but I can't entertain your matter because I can see collusion. So there's nothing like signing divorce papers. In some of those systems, once we have agreed that we can't do it, we can't do this, that's why they talk signing papers. So Nigerian movie just adopted it, brought it home, and acted it. There's nothing
so how
like
do they divorce?
You file papers. You file your petition. The other person is served. The person files response. Or the matter goes undefended if the person does not file. But it's not like you bring a paper.
So what happens when what that happens?
The only thing that happens that looks like sign those papers is we can enter an agreement. We can settle on terms. Now these terms are not we just agreed we're not going to be married again. The court will ask you how, like what? That's collusion. But okay, we have a contention, either irreconcilable difference, adultery, or whatever. But there were properties obtained in the course of the marriage, or issues of custody. We have this number of children, this I want to share custody or train them. The court can have you reduce that as terms and file before the court. Then the court will adopt it into its judgment. But not just that we just sat down, we are tired of each other, we are not doing it again. No, I need to see why you are not getting married. You are not staying married. So yes, we can file terms, or when it comes to property. Now what happens is that, like I said, we're an adversarial system. You come to prove your case. Things like property, custody, maintenance are things you need to prove. You come and show. In fact, I know a case in this country of a secular celebrity musician named Spared, where the lawyer involved at a point spoke to me. The difficulty the lady had was to trace the properties he had and to prove in the process that they were obtained in the course of the marriage. Because that's what you can really situate within the context of the marriage to start talking about a claim. And in that case, the guy didn't even let it go too far. He just put some terms on the table and they were okay with it. Maintenance for her and the children, this and that, because he actually jealously guarded those things. So those are procedures your lawyer will get into and check what is what property is property in the course of the marriage, what can I lay claim to as, our joint work or labor. But some people are quite smart with this process. Some couples jointly own properties. Some couples even take their wife's money and buy it still in their name and still find a way to. But you see, to be honest, I don't really consider all this, because we live in a system where enforcement is the problem, not the judgment. You can carry a beautiful judgment in Nigeria and not be able to enforce it. It's a long journey of enforcement. Enforcement is another proceeding altogether. In fact, we have laws that govern enforcement. Garnishee proceeding, this writ, that writ. There are all manner of styles of enforcement. Wow. So you are coming to the point where you are trying to enforce. And sometimes the way you crush enforcement, lawyers have done it repeatedly. You try and appeal. So you have done how many years fighting to get divorce? Appeal is taking another, say, 5-6 years in the court of appeal. And that appeal in itself, once some lawyers file appeal, they file stay of execution. You can't execute, even if you have judgment in your favor. You finish that one, 5-6 years, let's say it's fast, 3-4 years. Then the person goes to Supreme Court, eternity, God help you. Only God knows when the matter will be heard. With all the matters they have to hear and the competition for dates in the Supreme Court, the person still files stay of execution. And in law, you can't serve me a motion for stay of execution and I'll go and execute. The court does not have to determine the motion for me to respect the court enough that issue is pending. whether I can execute or not. So I'll be barred from execution. So imagine a judgment that before it travels from Court of Appeal to Supreme Court, motions are able to keep your execution for 10 years or 15 years cumulatively. What have you got? So sometimes these are the things that play to make a person just walk away. So so property. And before you know it, society say, you see it. It's about house. It's about property. That's why she wanted to kill our son. And the matter has scattered. So you see a lot of people just quietly, like, please, 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 you are gone, I'm gone. So there are rights, of course, that exist, but it is culturally speaking.
Yes,
in fact, some people are afraid, even in the court process, to articulate some claims they have.
Yes.
Because it just look like, it's all about property, it's all about money.
So the things if someone owns before the marriage is not on the table for splitting?
If you follow, again, it's not about splitting. It's about claim, proof, and judgment. So even if it was owned before the marriage brings what we call unity of spouse. You are one.
Okay.
You have now come into each other's life. But you see, where there's greater stake is what we acquired in the course of the marriage. Right. That's way easier than using principle of unity of spouses to prove that we're one now. Okay. So, especially when I can show how we both, came about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then what of children? How is custody determined? Again,
best interest of the child. The law easily tilts towards the mother if the children are of certain age. Because they are young, they still need that motherly care. Yeah. But once the children are some ages, the law easily tilts towards the father. Because, he's the one responsible for. But what happens in most cases, some men know the reality. They cannot. Yeah. So they go very lenient because most women go emotionally for custody.
Yes.
In fact, some men that fight for custody is pride.
Yes,
they cannot.
Sometimes just even to harm
exactly, to hurt the woman. Yes. Just show her that you can collect the children. Because a lot of men don't have a plan for the children. More women are going for. So custody is easily always settled. So the children may even be like 7, 8, 10, and the man is still saying, for God, I don't have any. So at that point, you're now dealing with maintenance. How much are you supposed to give monthly? How much are you supposed to give for school fees? That now becomes the point of contention. But in some cases, you will see raw contention for custody. Now, that's where it gets messy. Because besides age consideration, the law also look at other factors. Imagine a woman trying to actually prove how irresponsible a man is. It can get dirty. Because at this point, you are trying to show the court why he's unsafe. Yeah. You have cases where somebody said, the man violates his children. And he's bringing proof, medical reports. Yeah. And all of that. So at that point, it really gets dirty. Because now, the court is going beyond age consideration. Ordinarily, this man can have these children because he's their father. But if you look at ABC, that becomes another mess entirely. So it is mudslinging, I'm throwing my own, you're throwing your own, trying to convince a judge. If I was involved in one matrimonial matter at the point, I was responding, I was trying to see how, if I was speaking to both parties, I was ashamed. Because a Muslim judge paused several times to ask us, is this still just divorce proceeding? Wow. Because the details that were coming from this, several times, like, is this still, as a Christian, I felt ashamed. Like, is this still matrimonial proceeding, like divorce proceeding? That were, at the point, what's the use of this one? The lawyers will explain. And he will be forced to, because it's their case. So it's.
Wow. Is there any point of custody battle where the children are asked to choose?
No.
So they're not.
No. Once a child attains that level of maturity, then the child will not be subject. Children above 18 are not even subject to custody.
No, but maybe 15.
No. The judge will not do that.
So the judge will determine for them where this child should go.
Of course. And there are cases where the judge can take the children from both parents completely, in the best interest of the child. So you can throw the mud to the point that the judge will conclude that two of you, social welfare can take this child. Two of them. So more kukuma collect the children. So, and that's why when it comes to family court matters, in most states, let me not speak for, because some of this legislation are now localized. Like in Abuja, and I believe in Lagos, for custody matters, some custody matters go straight to the family court. You don't have to do the divorce procedure.
Yes.
Social welfare is always a party because the state is interested to participate and see where they come in. Yeah. Social welfare is always a party.
Now let me ask this: do we have prenups in Nigeria? Because we hear prenups a lot. Do we have it in Nigeria?
Okay, prenup is not something you necessarily have to have or not have. But the way the law operates is everything permissible in law is okay. So if you look at the Matrimonial Causes Act, it's like your vows that you take in church and make promises to each other.
Yes.
So you are allowed to have, as far as it doesn't offend the law. For example, you cannot have a prenup that permits you to have a second wife.
Yes, okay.
That goes contrary to the law.
Existing law, yes.
So that's a boundary you can't cross. Yes. But on issues of how you run your home, who is entitled to
so what is prenup, really? That phrase, prenup, what exactly does it mean?
Agreement before a marriage contract.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why there's even postnup.
Yes.
Even some of the things we have been discussing is postnup. Okay, my marriage is breaking. How do we do custody, maintenance, share property? Yeah. Okay. So prenup is simply, look, we are not planning for this marriage to fail, but again, somebody can now come to court before we married. We agreed we will stay married, though, God helping us. But that we are going to be acquiring property in our joint name. There's nothing illegal about that. Because what the law cannot enforce is illegality. So as long as it's within the parameters of what you can agree, we shall be having our houses in Lagos. Imagine we agree that we will live in Lagos, especially in this Jackpot generation. Somebody just because say it's Canada. Yes. Somebody can now use that as a ground of irreconcilable differences. That before we married, we actually agreed. Yes. See the agreement that we live in Lagos because I know this Jackpot thing can make couples break and I did not want a broken home. He agreed. The difference is irreconcilable. So those are the places where prenup can now come in as a factor. Not because the law says you can have prenup, but you are two persons coming together. You can have any agreement that does not run contrary to the law. So that's actually where prenup occupies globally. Is the level of enforceability. Some judicial systems, especially in the West, are more liberal to what you can do. That's why I see people claim all manner of things. There are things you do in Nigeria, the judge you are just like you agreed that one before you married. Like, were you planning to divorce? So prenup has that place where you can agree on things, basically for the welfare of the marriage you are coming into, and the unlikely event that there's an issue. Okay, what do we do? What happens to like property of the marriage you have acquired together and all of that? Yeah. So why not?
Okay, but people do things like prenup, saying things like, I will never share my money, or yes, you will never have access to my money if we're separating, or whatever.
Well, why that runs like contrary to the ethos of the law, I don't see why that is law's business. I don't know how you are coming together and keeping your money, but I will struggle to find which law it offends. Because the thing about a valid contract is that we have two parties having capacity to enter contract. So once I cannot prove deceit, or that somebody was misled, or facts were hidden, once you can show that it's a valid agreement, you agreed now. Because when you were agreeing, was he under duress? Was there any undue influence? Because there's undue influence, which is slightly different from duress. Somebody can use his position and say, don't worry, just agree to your husband. Me, I will give you 1 million every month. Undue influence has entered. Somebody has influenced your decision. Whereas I should have married you to take care of me. Somebody promised me 1 million and don't give me. So, yeah, there are some of those will constitute boundaries that you can't just agree at large. Like the example I gave, extreme, but that I now agree, I'm going to marry in the registry, but you can marry a second wife. How? The law will just tell you don't have the power to do that. So, and some things are determined case by case. You can't forecast all these scenarios. Because this Gen Z generation, only God knows what they are signing with each other. They must be signed. People are signing all manner of things. So it's when they hit court, that court is which one is this one again? So that.
Finally, you've spoken about how you can break or divorce in the Marriage Act or whatever. Now, how do you break or reverse the customary and the church?
Okay, church is basically customary.
Okay.
So whatever you did that made you marry, you go and undo it. But you see, the church will not undo it for you. That's why, if you notice, the church has a way of leaning under one of the forms of marriage. Either they're asking you, have you met the family, or some churches even ask you to bring the certificate you got from the state and present it along with the church certificate in the church. Of course, that's just ceremony.
Yes.
So the form of the marriage will determine how it goes. Like Islamic marriage, there's a Sharia court where people can file a proceeding. But if you look at the full extent, now I'm not an expert in Sharia law, but the talaq, for example, I divorce you, and you're gone, because that is system recognized. Sometimes the reason why people now still approach the court is for things like what we're talking about, custody, because Islamic, actually, this was not just information I got back in school. I find to be true. Islamic law is actually extensive, very extensive. Provides for all manner of stuff: inheritance, relationship, consanguinity. I mentioned it goes very far. Then under customary law, most times people actually go to the customary or area courts just to have a formal document. But most marriages can be broken under culture by action, not by court.
Okay.
So families meet, because it took families to get married.
Yes.
Families meet and they return bride price. In some cases, the husband's family would even say, we waive it. But there must be an agreement. So what we do sometimes, or what I've seen rather, which is apt, legally speaking, is that people now document it. Like when these things are returned or money is returned, they snap pictures. So that if there's any claim, because where these things come to haunt people later, very often is when the question arises if you have the capacity to remarry.
Yes.
And that's why most times, you see, when people get divorced, there are two layers, even under the Act. The order that the court makes is called an order nisi, N-I-S-S-I, order nisi, some people pronounce. That order means that I have now made this order dissolving the marriage or annulling the marriage, but there is a 90-day period where if there's no intervening circumstance or an appeal, it becomes an order absolute. So the order nisa is like an interim order, as it were.
Yes.
So even in custom, what you're trying to do here, you see, is get proof. That's what people need. Because tomorrow people blackmail people. I can still married to this person. So someone is able to bring out either a judgment.
Yes.
So the customary court systems exist for many reasons. They have jurisdiction over several matters, issues of custom, practice, or certain amounts of transaction. They have jurisdiction. Matrimonial court is one of them. But people don't have to necessarily do that. Most cases, customarily, family settles it, return bride price, keep whatever proof of it, and then move on.
So in a case where somebody did only church, what do they do?
You have to resort to your family, because there's nothing recognized with what you have done. In fact, the church is considered celebration. What did you even celebrate? That means there's a system that gave you out and system that gave you wife. So eventually, because there's no authority the church will give you to say, we now say you are divorced.
Yeah.
So that's all spiritual business, completely spiritual.
Oh, so two individuals and their families can't come to church and say, we're not doing traditional, we're not doing registry, come on with our daughter.
They have just done traditional. That agreement in itself is customary.
Oh.
Because what's this custom we're talking about? The families have the capacity to come together and practice agreeing on something. So that mere agreement of saying we don't want to do that, they have now done a custom. So if that couple have to go apart, the way they decided that it's church that will join them, they are the ones that will still do it. Exactly. Because when you talk about return of bride price, it's because you gave bride price.
Yeah.
So if you didn't give anything and you did agreement, it's the same agreement I can say we're not doing again. We now agree that our children have separated.
Okay.
So that's purely
Lastly, so do parents or family have to be around for it to be a valid marriage?
Two consenting adults in the presence of witnesses, and the same conditions of capacity applies to both the adults and the witnesses. For instance, you can't bring a minor to witness. Like in my registry marriage, my wife's cousin and my friend were the ones that went to talk. And nobody will ask you, where's your father or your mother? Wow. The only thing you do in the form is to fill your name, your father's name, your mother's name as the people who gave birth to you, because you didn't show up on earth from nowhere. Okay. And no proof whatsoever was required. bring their
So
driver's
you can just
license.
can bring people selling gala, like I said,
Any
traffic, just bring them,
adult.
pay
can
them.
The easiest thing to do
Plenty
in the
witnesses.
world is to get married in
Marriage.
the registry.
Very
Just speak form, fill it.
It's
put
just the
passport.
coming out is not that easy. Breaking it is not that easy. Starting
Breaking it is the hardest part.
Yes.
Entering, easy.
Easy.
Running it, hard. Breaking it, harder.
Because in Hollywood, I had in Las Vegas, I had to have drive-through
Yes.
marriage. So it's
Yes.
quick. You can
In
do
fact,
it.
COVID has made some things easy. There are registries now in the world that allows marriage where one party is present and the other is not.
Wow.
In fact, there are some, I was reading about which country is this recently, where both parties may be absent and proxies will stand on their behalf
Wow.
Yes.
But you have to
It
verify that they agree.
Yes, it is that easy.
Because if not, someone can go and marry you without you
It
knowing.
is that easy,
You
right?
just
there.
passing the same, my brother, come
Yeah.
back, I married you last week. You're walking about, come on.
Very easy. It is the easiest. That's why Masmuro thought that it is the easiest thing. To get driver's license is hard. To get passport is everything is hard. But marriage, you just enter. Like that case of the single persons I gave, the guy that traveled. They are married. They thought it was a joke. They thought he just needed paper, and he went back. The visa that had been denied him with marriage status, they gave him visa. So she thinks she's holding paper. The system knows her husband is a whole. So.
Wow, that is powerful. I hope this has been helpful. If you have questions, you can please send to us. We'll see what we could do in terms of answering them. But this was very enlightening and very powerful. So thank you, Barrister, for coming.
Thank you, sir.
All the
Thank
way.
you,
Thank
pleasure.
you. All right, so hey guys, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment. Tell us what you think about what we discussed, unique situations. Please don't forget to follow our sister pages, our channels. They will be a great blessing to you. All right, so God bless you. Thank you for watching.